everybody? Welcome to Rumors versus Facts, the relaunching of our Georgia recruiting show. We are going to change it up a little bit where we talk Georgia recruiting, but we're also going to talk a lot more Georgia football team-related stuff. To that end, we have on Anthony Dasher, the managing editor of UGAsports.com, Jed May, who does football team stuff and is our lead recruiting expert, Lance McCurley, our recruiting writer, and, of course, the new guy, Harrison Reno, the intern with the good hair. That's bring everybody on to kind of basically everybody, but I think Kate was at the game. Kate and Patrick were also at the game. So we had a bunch of photographers, reporters, writers, videographers, everybody at the Georgia G-Day game. And that's what we need to talk about first. We'll talk about it in depth with Coach Donnan tomorrow as well. So check us out tomorrow at noon. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts before Jed has to hop off and interview Mark Bowman, maybe the best tight end recruit in the since Brock Bowers. Maybe further along than Brock Bowers was at this point in his career, but Jed's going to have to leave and talk about him at 8:30. So I'm going to get right to it, and we'll start off with Jed and Dash. The number one question I got after G-Day was, who's Georgia's quarterback? Can they win a national championship? What did you see? It wasn't on television, which boggles my mind. But, guys, natty on or natty off?
Go ahead, Jed. Oh, we don't hear you.
Oh, we lost Jed. Jed, stop talking. How'd you mute yourself?
Well, I'll go ahead if Jed wants to.
Yeah, go ahead and try it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Well, I'll just start talking then. I'm going to say natty off. And it's not so much to do with Gunnar Stockton and Ryan Puglisi. I think they'll be fine. I just look at what Georgia has to replace and how young this team is. I just think it's going to be difficult for this team to repeat as as the SEC champion. And, that may be proven wrong. I've certainly been proven wrong in the past, but I don't know. I've got questions on the offensive line. I got questions on the defensive front. I think they've got some good young players, but I'm kind of at the point now I want to kind of see these guys produce before I start, throwing out projections, predictions, and that sort of thing. Maybe I've been listening to Kirby too much over the years to kind of get jaded by everything he's been telling the media, but it's a young team. I don't think there's any question about that, and young teams typically make mistakes, typically take some time to grow up and get going, and I think this team will have some growing pains next year.
Okay. Jed? No. Jed's still out. We're gonna drop Jed and bring him back. Harrison, you're the new guy. Harrison, give us your thoughts. You were there. You were up in the press box. What'd you think?
I'm with Dash. I think after last year, the expectations were that team was going to be good enough to win a national championship. And, obviously there's more holes at receiver than I think a lot of us thought. I'm not quite there yet in terms of confidence, at the quarterback position. And like Dash said, the lines of scrimmage to say that this is a national championship contending team.
All right, Lance, you were down on the field level. What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement. Obviously,
Georgia's the hell out of me.
Is it me?
Yeah, y'all are depressing me, man.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's one screen. Yeah, but I mean, obviously there's problems. There's problems at quarterback, but I mean, you got to look at some of these skill positions, and I mean, kind of what Harrison said. I agree with that. I don't think that Georgia's as good at receivers. They thought they were. Obviously, they bring in Zachariah Branch, they bring in Noah Thomas, and they lose, a few guys. You keep Dylan Bell, but I mean, drops were a problem on Saturday. Now, there were also some great contested catches. I think I remember Zachariah Branch made a contested catch. CJ Wiley went up on the sideline. I think brought down a one-handed pass. But it's a really young receiving core. And those two other guys, they're still coming in, learning the offense and stuff like that. And then, obviously you want to talk about, the offensive and defensive, everyone wants to talk about the offensive line. But I mean, the defensive line lost a lot too. But I think that the defensive line, at least at the interior, is going to be fine with a few guys coming back. And then, the likes of, Elijah Griffin just looked absolutely unblockable. It seemed like on some of those plays, but I mean the main thing on defense is going to be at edge. That's a big question mark, especially with Damon Wilson. He's at Missouri, right? Kind of unexpectedly losing him, and their problems. In the secondary, it's safety with the Dogs losing. Malachi Starks, probably a first rounder, and then another stud like Dan Jackson. So. Yeah, I'd say right now it's just Natty off, at least at this point.
Jed, what'd you make of the quarterbacks?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
got
sir.
me.
Yes.
Thank God. Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about quarterbacks. I don't know if we really learned a whole lot. I mean, with Gunner, he had a couple good deep balls, and he had a couple balls that kind of sailed out of bounds. He had one, I remember, where he had, I forget who it was, but I think maybe Dylan Bell, where he was open coming over the middle on third down and just threw it behind him. So, a mixed bag. And, I think the stuff about Gunner's running ability is, I don't say it's overblown because he is a good athlete, but I also don't think Kirby Smart is that guy who's going to call 10 to 12 design quarterback runs a game. That's just not who he is philosophically. That's not really who Mike Bobo is either. So, yeah, I mean, we saw the arm talent from Puglisi. He had a great touchdown drive in the second half with the first team guys. So, I just think, are they good enough? Like, I think Gunnar Stockton's going to be the starter. Is he good enough to lead you to a national title? I don't know. But at the start of 2021, would anybody have said that Stetson Bennett is good enough to take you to a national title? No. Like, there's so much that goes on into being a quarterback, leadership, getting guys to play for you, all that stuff. And Stetson certainly had that. And from hearing guys talk about Gunnar, Dash, you've heard this all spring too. Like, these guys really do like Gunnar. They love playing for him. They love having him be at the forefront of the huddle. So maybe it's I don't want to think greater than the sum of its parts, because that makes it sound like a Cinderella story that it's not. But maybe having a guy with Gunnar's leadership capabilities gets him over the edge. And I think the biggest thing, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is if you don't run the ball better than you did last year. And if you're averaging 104 or whatever it was rushing yards a game, then it's not really going to matter. So I think if you get that figured out, the offense will be fine. The defense is going to be young, but showed some promise. But yeah, I think if I had to pick right now, I'd probably say Natty off. Schedule tough, new quarterback, a lot of good teams in the league, obviously, as we know. So, but there's potential. There's talent all over the place for sure.
The one thing I'll say just real quick on Gunnar, what we saw in the second half of the SEC championship game last year, where the team just rallied around him, that's continued on through spring practice. And if there was an issue, I think last year with Georgia, it was the leadership in the quarterback position. I mean, I just really think that was a factor last year that I don't think will be in play this year. I think that the players respect Gunnar a lot more than they did Carson. Just two different guys. And I just think that's going to have a more positive effect. I really do. I mean, Gunnar may not have all the physical tools as a Carson Beck or maybe some other quarterbacks, but I think that leadership can possibly help, carry this offense maybe further than, I don't know, maybe it did at certain times last year, because the players are going to want to do well for him. I mean, they're going to want to make Gunnar look good. They're going to want to help Gunnar look good because it will help them look good and help the team look good. And, and that's what everybody, I think, in the end, wants with the program. But
yeah,
I just think that's going to be will play a role this year. I don't think we're really talking about a lot, about right now.
And you're right. I mean, but is leadership worth 2 touchdowns? Is it worth a win? I don't know.
You can never quantify. You can't.
I know you can't quantify.
There's no way to do that. But
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah, but you just want. But you really have a team that's going to, I think, maybe fight harder and go harder. For one person over the other. So
that was my point. Is we can't quantify that. If we were talking about, hey, Georgia added Luther Burden in the offseason, you'd be like, okay, well, that's worth 8 more touchdowns than you had last year at the wide receiver spot. And Kirby will take issue with the fact that Georgia didn't rush the ball as much, but he doesn't look at the stats and say, hey, we only rushed for 102 yards, because some of those half the throws to Cash Jones, he had 24 receptions versus 14 carries, but those were running plays. But he still said, what's the number one thing we're working on this spring? Running the ball, stopping the run. G-Day rolls around. They're not going to run the ball in G-Day.
No, they're going to throw the ball. It's a design throws every single time.
Yeah.
That's why people want. Or, some people look at all the tip passes and say, "Man, what's wrong with the offensive line?" Well, the defensive line knows they're going to throw the ball every time. It's a lot easier to knock passes down. So
so they're going to bat it down. And I asked one of the guys, I asked Ernest Green specifically. I'm like, come on, man. What about everybody on the defensive line knows you're throwing it. And he goes, yeah, they're jumping up, they're knocking it down. They know a pass is coming, but it's our job to stop them from doing that. So, and we had this thing, before with, Stetson Bennett, a few passes got knocked down and they thought that he's just too short to play and it just never happened. It didn't happen again. My point is we can't quantify the leadership, but the team does play harder. The team was running the ball pretty hard. They were stopping the run when it did happen. Again, it's good on good, so you can't extrapolate a lot from that. But just because everybody else says Natty off, I'm gonna go Natty on. Honestly, just to be a contrarian, I will say here's what I liked.
Well, that's nothing new for you, Roddy.
It's like I would have been if you'd all said Natty on, I'd have gone the other way. Just to play devil's advocate.
And I don't mean to poo-poo the team entirely.
Let me finish, Dash.
Yeah, go ahead.
See,
that's what you get for bringing me on this show.
This is the quarterbacks. You lost talent and experience at quarterback if you're going with Gunner. You're bringing in inexperience, but you're bringing in people who rally around Gunner. He's also a gunslinger. He throws a better deep ball than anything we saw from Carson Beck. Carson Beck sets the school record for accuracy, but he also set it for frustrations too. A bunch of 3 interception games, so he's not that. But you saw the way the team played for Stetson, the way they played for Jake Fromm when he was thrust into it against Notre Dame. Sometimes they will rally around a guy and Nate Frazier's lead back and Bo Walker behind him, and then maybe the Robinsons come back. Great. And there's a lot of questions on the offensive and defensive line. I'm with you 100%. And edge, especially secondary. That was a rough secondary last year, after losing 3 guys. But this is not the continuation of those 21-22 national championship days. We had so many guys from the last 2 years that were on those teams. We're kind of expecting them to be that. This is the rebuild. I'm with you. And it is young. But that young talent, holy crap, And the guys that brought in the freshman talent. I was impressed with a bunch of the young guys. I think Kirby's going to get. I don't think it'll be this year. It is a rebuilding year, but when you're seeing Chris Cole and Justin Williams, you start getting excited, and they're backing up 2 of the best in the league, and you're looking at Quintavious Johnson on the edge. You're like, that guy can play some ball. Jeremy Bell blowing up.
I mean, as
Kobe White finally getting some passes. Jed, I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think you look at it, and it almost feels like it could be a 2020 type year. God forbid there's not another pandemic, but like a year where you had so many guys that were young and stepping up, and you thought, man, like this in 2021, so many of those guys were another year better. You look ahead to it's stupid to say because we just got done with spring 25, but like next year you'll have KJ Bolden and Quintavious Johnson, all these guys on the edge. The freshmen they brought in on the edge will be another year older, and the receivers, like it almost feels like this year will be a year. And like again, we're if you knew nothing, you'd think this Georgia team is going to be like 7-5, and no matter what Kirby tells the team, they're better than that. And I think this is a team like if they went and won a national championship, would I be floored? No, but I think this is the type of year where you look back on it and say this is the year where Chris Cole and Justin Williams developed into those game-wrecking guys, and a receiver like a Talon Taylor really steps up and sets the stage for what could be next year, and all those kind of things. So I think they're really young, but they're so talented at so many spots. I mean, a guy you were talking about the running game, I thought Chauncey Bowens was one of my most impressive guys. He looked
second year in a row
quicker and more agile than I think I expected him to. So yeah, running back room where you've got Nate Frazier, and then it's kind of a shrug after that because who knows what you're going to get out of the Robinsons. Cash Jones is kind of solidified third down kind of thing, but like you said, Rowdy, he doesn't get handed the ball a whole lot. So what else is going on as far as the running game? Chauncey Bowens looked great. He had a long run, he had a reception where he made a guy miss and broke a big gain. So that's a good bonus. And then the receivers are just with Colby Young back, that receiver group is just so ridiculous. I mean, we didn't even really get to see Noah Thomas because he had a shoulder thing and went out, Kirby said. So, but you threw him, like I remember G-Day last year, Colby Young had like a contested third down catch and a back shoulder fade for a touchdown. And it was like, well, that's what Colby Young was brought here to do. And they threw a couple of those to Noah Thomas. Didn't catch him, but that's kind of the role. Like you throw him the ball in the red zone, you throw him the ball in traffic. So the receiver group is just ridiculous, and the tight ends, obviously, we all.
You can win with the air raid. Dash has seen it. Lance has seen it. I mean, what were we talking about? All the first half of last year, all we talked about was Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, and I was privy to a guy who visited Georgia's practice. He's a fan of a different team. He got in through either some corporate thing or something, and he gave a friend of mine his critique. And he said, I'll tell you what Georgia looks like, especially in the wide receiver group, because your slots look like slot guys. Your X's and Z's look like X's and Z's. You got 6'6" guy out there, 6'5", 6'4". You got some huge bodies out there. And then when you look at the slot, it's just it's a rabbit. Guys who just scamper, guys who are explosive, who are twitchy. And then you've got Lawson Lucky looks ridiculous. Jaden Reddle, is a freak. Oscar Delp is experienced. Yeah. And I guess that's why I started out with, but you don't win without a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, you lose experience going Carson Beck to Gunnar Stockton. There's no question there, but you do gain, a guy for them to rally around. You lose. He's not as cerebral as Carson Beck or Stetson Bennett, but he is a gambler. He is a warrior. He's a baller.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to use that vernacular, but this is a guy who he's a winner.
Yeah.
If you have to go with Ryan Puglisi, well, then you get back to what you had with, the other guys. You had that cerebral guy. Look how fast when he came in, especially when one of the ones, catch, throw, catch. That kid gets the ball out quickly, and he has wheels. So to me, Gunnar Stockton can't rely on the fact that, hey, I'm going to run it. And I thought, Jed, you nailed it. They're not going to call, 10 quarterback keepers.
And I think
they'll use them on third down and
championship because that's what Gunnar knew. And it's like, okay, we know his legs are a weapon. He's already got the spread it wide and the quarterback draw it down. But then again, when you develop the game plan, like the quarterback draws and stuff was the emergency. Like we got to figure this out for a half and do what we got to do to move the ball. But when that guy's entrenched like that, I just don't think. And even with Stetson, like every now and then you'd see I remember against TCU where they called that the quarterback sweep where they scored a touchdown and they had a quarterback draw against Auburn, but that was, a couple designed runs a game, maybe at best. So I don't think that's what you do. But again, making plays with your legs is huge. Even with Carson Beck, we saw him do that. And that's once or twice a game he would scramble for a first down. And those to keep drives alive, to keep your defense off the field, all that adds up over the course of the year, for sure.
Here's a good question for Lance or Harrison. Would y'all compare Gunnar to Max Duggan at TCU?
Yeah. I could honestly see that just with the intangibles and just the arm strength and just kind of accuracy we've seen. We saw a little bit in the SEC championship to the Notre Dame game, and then again on Saturday. And I mean, they've kind of got that. They've kind of got that, like, this sounds really dumb, but they kind of got that little like poof in the back of their helmet with their hair where it kind of just looks similar. And I do kind of see that now, especially when they're running the ball too. So, but I mean, Roddy, the fact that you talk about Gunnar being a gamer, I mean, he is absolutely a gamer and he is 100% a winner. I remember when I wrote that story back on him in December, him kind of went up and talked to his dad and, people up at Raven County Recreation Department. He went like 66-0 or like 70-0 across from like 6 to or like 3rd through like 7th or 8th grade, like football. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, long
I'm
story.
with you. So you don't have to run, and Dash has covered Mike Bobo's offense long enough to have seen this. You don't have to run the most complicated pro style offense. You can throw in a bunch more reads, knowing you can use his legs because the guy behind him is going to step in. And this is, when people talk about, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. That is such bullshit. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 2 quarterbacks. And if you've got a guy who can come in and run the offense like we saw Puglisi do, you're like, okay, well, when Georgia doesn't have quarterback depth, you don't run him unless you absolutely have to, or just to keep the defense honest. But again, I'm not here to defend Mike Bobo, but if you tell Mike, hey, you got 2 good quarterbacks, both can run it, or both can run the offense. Dash, you've seen him go a little more.
Yeah, I mean, we've
simpler offense with, hey, you're going to distribute the ball to all these ridiculous talents.
Mhm.
And then if they start dropping into, we got a 3-man front. Guess what you're going to do, Gunner? You're going to take off and pick up 65 yards.
Yeah. And I do think, too, you will see Mike, I think use Gunner a little bit differently than he did Carson. I think you're going to see more mesh concepts with Gunner than you've seen, obviously, would have seen with Carson or really any quarterback recently, for the Bulls. I know Stetson did some of it a little bit, but you'll see some more of that, I think, with Gunner. And again, what I was, probably most impressed with, from Saturday was just the fact they were taking shots. I mean, Georgia fans, that's all we heard last year. Georgia won't throw deep. I mean, they won't take shots. And granted, again, it was a G-Day game.
The quarterback was inaccurate as hell.
It was a glorified scrimmage, but still, I mean, you at least take the shot. I mean, you may not hit him all the time, but at least take him. It's at least good to see him make some attempts anyway. Now they got to clean it up and get everybody going in the right direction and start completing some of them. But at least it's good to know that it's kind of in the back of their mind that, hey, we need to be a little more aggressive than maybe we were last year.
Yeah, I'm going to – as great as some of the guys are losing to the NFL are, and again, losing, Mike Hill is huge. Losing Malachi is gigantic. You're losing some talent there. But I think the offense, and you hate that Carson Beckett's going to be playing in Miami. You'd want him to come back, and you're going to play another year in college, come back here, be the leader that you could have been, and you would love to have that experience. I'm very gung-ho about how much talent they're going to have on offense, and I think that the defense will come along. I still think that with the transfer portal opening up, if you can find an edge guy, you can find another experienced safety. I know they brought in a bunch of safeties, but the transfers kind of showed out. So let me get your thoughts, guys, on any of the transfers that stood out to you. I'm going to take the easy, low-hanging fruit, and I thought Zachariah Branch was pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's really going on a limb. I mean, I think
I'm just saying that's low. I'm going to take that one off the board. I want to see what you thought about the other guys.
I'll go. I mean, Adrian Maddox. I heard his name called a few times. Let me see. I got the stat thing right here. I know I saw him. He came off the edge one time and got a sack on a. I don't know if he was in the slot or what, but he came on a blitz and got a sack. He had 5 total tackles, a sack, and a pass broken up. So, the safety room is. 1, kind of up for grabs anyway, but 2, you put guys in there, you can have situational packages, all that kind of stuff that they like to do with the safety. So for a guy in Adrian Maddox who is taking a step up in competition from UAB, I thought that was a pretty encouraging performance from him as, you got KJ at the 1 safety, stars, most likely Janelle Aguero / Kyron Jones, and the other safety is like Ja'Cory Thomas or Ed Maddox or Zion Branch, or there's all these guys working for that one spot. Jaden Harris, yeah, but I thought Adrian Maddox had a pretty good showing. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off, Rowdy. I got a Mark Bowman call.
Hey, folks, if it goes long enough, come back. But folks, be sure to tune in tomorrow for the front page of UGAsports.com. We're gonna have Jed Mays a conversation with Mr. Bowman, the one of the best tight ends in the nation, who just visited
the not the Braves beat reporter. He's a tight end from California. Different.
This
Very
Mark
good.
Bowman is.
I think Mark could play tight end too. I mean, I know Mark pretty
Yeah,
well.
that's true.
I see Mark is more of a center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
All right, see you
I'm
guys.
thinking of the old Mark. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jed. Let's get Jed up. All right. Who else transfers stuck out to you?
I wish we could see more of Noah Thomas because from what I was told, again, I know it's going to be low-hanging fruit as well, but for what I was told, he'd had an excellent spring. I mean, like most new guys, a little slow to start off with learning the system, but the last 2 or 3 weeks has really, really come on. And we had a chance to speak with him, the week or so. Just a really, really bright kid. I mean, really just, very intellectual guy, and it was fun listening to what he had to say about joining the Georgia team. But I would like to see more of him. But I think he's going to have a great impact. I mean, you put him in Branch and Kobe Young, man. I'm telling you, if he's got everything squared away with his personal life, and he can go out and be the kind of receiver he is on the edge. Georgia's receiving corps is going to be pretty good. And I also like what I saw for C.J. Wiley and Talion Taylor. I mean, both are young guys that I think will have an impact. And Sokovia White too, I think, had a very good, G-Day game. But I know we kind of diverted myself from your question about the transfer, but I think you put Noah Thomas in that group.
That's newcomers in general.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think receiving corps could be pretty good, perhaps a little better than last year. To be quite honest with you,
I think definitely better than last year.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing, Harrison, they can't get worse.
No,
They made some drops, and there were some drops again this week.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Cole Spear. He was the first one to drop a pass, and immediately you just saw the Twitter section just light up, dropping passes and all that. I remember, who was it? Was it Ellis Williams that dropped a touchdown in the end zone? I know on that first drive.
He had a couple of drops.
Yeah, a couple
drops. I think someone pointed out he missed a block on one of the screens early on, then he had the holding penalty. I think that same drive, rough start for him. But Roddy, the guy that stood out to me the most in terms of newcomers was Dominic Kelly. I thought Dominic Kelly held his own with that twos unit, going up against some very talented freshman receivers on the other side.
Yeah, very fair. He stood out. Lance,
I would say Bo Walker, to be completely honest. I think I'm trying to find the stats right here. I believe I was talking to a recruit yesterday. And he mentioned, it was a running back recruit, I think in the 28 class. And he mentioned, he was like, yeah, I really liked Bo Walker. And I was like, I went back and looked at all my pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got like so many pictures of Bo Walker, coming my way. And I looked at it. I think he got the most carries out of, any running back, at least on his team. I don't know about the entire day, but I mean, he had some good runs, and, he is a kid or a player who could, really make an impact, because you really don't know, when are the Robinsons, going to be fully healthy again? When, one of them can end up getting injured again. You look at, we talked about Chauncey Bowens, playing well. Of course, Nate Frazier's, there, but, he could really be that third or fourth guy along with, behind Cash. And you've also got Dwight Phillips as well. But I mean, he ran hard, and he's just a kid that I've liked since I watched him first play at Cedar Grove. And, he proved that he can, he's a little shorter, honestly. He's probably around 5'9", 5'10", but I mean, he proved that he could run between the tackles and on the outside on Saturday.
Roddy, I remember sitting at one of the press conferences after they dropped that photo of him for the first spring scrimmage, and I was like, wait, who is that? Already looks good physically, was the one thing you noticed about him. Like, he looks like a college running back.
Yeah, well, speaking of look good physically, we'll grab a couple questions here, but one of them was Foster Moss talking about, will Jod Johnson get the start there? And, will Big Jod get the start on the O-line? No, that is a monstrous shoot. I mean, but here's the thing. This is what, when I talked about the 2021 and 2022 teams and how there's kind of a break in this rebuilding, when you would look out there and you would see Jordan Davis, you're like, Jesus, look at that guy. there were physical freaks out there that just kind of caught your attention. And Georgia, you also had a ridiculously good inside linebacker crew. You do now. But when you see Quintavious Johnson and Big Ja out there. Wait, no, I'm sorry. He's talking about he's talking about different.
Jazir Jackson.
Big offensive tackle.
Yeah.
So, Jamal he could be a starter. But when you look at that big offensive tackle out there, and then you see, as Dash pointed out, what Colby can do. I'm like, okay. Then you look at that running back room, and Nate Frazier looks like, NFL starter. Bo already looks ready. Elias Williams, you pointed out, I'm like, the first day of practice, we're like, look.
Yeah.
And you almost knew instantly who Elias was. There's bodies on this team that, like, this looks like that 2021 team is loaded with all these guys are going to the NFL. So, again, I don't know what the transfer portal is going to do to Georgia, but when this all said and done with this second round, I don't think it's not going to be nearly as bad as the first time. Right now I'll put Georgia's transfers in up against just about anybody's. They've got some fantastic talent coming in, but it looks like a winning football team. And when you go to the trenches, that to me, that's kind of why I went to that question there. Kirby Smart's able to run 3 deep on the offensive line. And he actually said himself, he says, I don't know if anybody – he said he doubted that anybody else in the league or in the nation can go 3 deep on the offensive line. And that's before the transfer portal. I could see them lose 1 or 2, but I could also see them add 1. So, more experienced guys. You were losing 4 offensive linemen to the NFL, 4 talented guys that will get drafted. Any other program and any other time in Georgia's history, you'd be like, well, that's it. I mean, they're going to have to rebuild from nothing. But Ernest Green looked good out there.
Yeah.
Bobo's playing, even though he's got a hyperextended knee. Micah Morris, one of the strongest guys in the history of the University of Georgia, is going back out there. Monroe Freeling will be back. This is not a Michael Ooney, getting the work in there. It's going to be new faces up there, but I think we're also going to, next year or the year after, we'll be talking about a bunch of these guys getting drafted.
And Roddy, I think one of the ones that we didn't even get to see was Daniel Calhoun, who got injured in spring. That's a guy that's competing for a spot at guard. There's still more names I think that we have yet to see publicly, but I do think obviously after you bring 4 returning starters last year and you don't do as well in the run game, there is reason for optimism in some sorts because Georgia has still been recruiting a lot of talented players up front. Now it's just time for those guys to produce.
Dash, give me Unias Norris wants to talk about the defense there, and I kind of touched on it a little bit. There are questions on defense, especially on the edge. You were talking about this morning.
Probably the biggest one.
Honestly, there were questions last year on the edge. I mean, that's not shot against Chaz Chambliss, but it's just you just didn't feel like Georgia had that sack that was always coming. That edge pressure, setting the edge on the runs. Things about the run game, not being able to set the edge. I think the inside linebackers were fantastic, but give me your thoughts on the overall defense.
Overall defense, like I said, you talk about the outside linebackers again. That's probably my biggest concern. I like the young players on the defensive front. I'll get to that in just a second. But Quintavious Johnson. I mean, again, guy used to play quarterback at Cedar Grove, turned into an outside linebacker. He's got all the talent in the world, but again, a young guy who's not played the position much in a real game. Gabe Harris, who
called him out publicly.
Yeah.
Not in a mean way. It was in your story yesterday.
Yeah. And Gabe Harris too had didn't able to practice all spring because he was coming off a surgery. Still a bit of question exactly how he's going to perform. So that's if you talk about the transfer portal coming up, I think that's one position. Again, if they could find the right guy, it would not surprise me to see Georgia go out and try to find somebody to kind of help that position a little bit. Just again because of the youth. Again, they got some great young players, but that experience is something that they just don't really have to lean on right now. But getting back to that defensive front, though, I know we talked about him briefly earlier, but Elijah Griffin, God, I hate to get too excited about a guy because Kirby would have my head if I did. But this is a talented.
He ain't here. Go nuts.
Talented dude, man. I'm not going to make any comparisons or anything like that, but just based off what we saw in G-Day game, him getting in the backfield to bring down an end-around play for like a 3 or 4 yard loss, that's pretty impressive. And plus what we've been hearing, from practice about him just causing havoc as an interior pass rusher. The guy's got very good speed for such a big man. He's going to have an impact, I think. We'll see how big of one he makes, but I think he's somebody that Georgia fans should be excited about. Analysts don't always get the 5 stars right, but I think they definitely got it right with Elijah.
Oh yeah,
and he's going to have a big career for Georgia. Jordan Hall, I think, I was very impressed with him. That's probably of all the defensive linemen this past weekend. I probably put a couple of blue stars by his name. Again, somebody we saw, creating some havoc as an interior pass rusher, and looked like he was back 100% to me. I mean, just what was able to to witness the way he moved, the way he's able to kind of get after the quarterback a little bit. He looked like he was back, and he's going to be huge for Georgia. Of course, Kristen Miller wasn't able to practice this spring either, coming off of surgery. But those two guys are going to have to kind of be the two catalysts there to kind of lead this young group.
I'm gonna add one to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
McLeod.
Yeah, Xavier McLeod. I hadn't forgot about him. I was going to mention him as well. Again, he's somebody who took him away.
Just from Saturday, I was like,
to learn something. But Saturday, you could see him kind of flash, as well. So that's three guys right there, plus some of these young guys. Nnamdi Ogboko is another guy who flashed, I think late last season. Had a couple of good plays in the Georgia Tech game, if I remember correctly. And he's had a very, very good spring. Jordan Thomas had a good G-Day game. So they've got some good young players. It's just, again, the experience factor for a lot of them isn't what Kirby Smart, wants, but the talent is there. And as the season goes along, I think you'll see the group get better.
I want to see. Go ahead, Lynn. Sorry.
I think we to go back to John Jarrett. I think I've got a couple shots on him. I mean, Ogboko is a huge human being, but him just going up against John Jarrett, I mean, it was like night and day. And from what I remember, I mean, he played him well, and that's definitely another guy to watch. I'll back Dash up on that. He's definitely a guy to watch on the line as well.
That defensive line. I mean, you're losing Warren Brinson,
Stackhouse,
Tyron Ingram, Dawkins. Again, 3 guys that can get drafted, and anytime you lose, and then of course Michael, and say, hey, we got four defensive linemen drafted. I'm sorry, it's a rebuild. It's not a reload, but you are putting in guys there who have that talent. And I think in 2 years, we're talking about Jordan Hall being a top pick, and how you got McLeod away from South Carolina, and he's going to go, on a day 3 guy, and you're waiting on this to be how well the sophomore season went for Griffin, and now he's the quintessential Jordan Davis type, the buzz around him. He's going in that line of Jalen Carter and guys, another Trace Scott stud. Just it's going to take a while to get there, but I'd like to see any of those guys command those double teams, keep that linebacker core. Raylan, and as excited as I get about Justin Williams and Chris Cole and guys like that, C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson in that linebacker core. I don't know how Glenn Schumann does it. He's kind of like Todd Hartley and always having the best tight ends. He has a ridiculous inside linebacker room, and if you can make it so that those guys can be clean, nobody climb into that second level, because Jordan Hall's eating those and McLeod are eating those double teams, and Boko is eating those double teams. You let those guys, especially with all the running quarterbacks Georgia's going to face, the mobile quarterback trend, and you're letting those guys come through free and clear. And they double mug, and they're both lined up over an A gap, and that quarterback's kind of sweating bullets a little bit. I love that, and that's what won them. I mean, go back to Quay and Kobe and those guys. It's just when you have 2, 3 guys who are interchangeable and you run all your different defenses. when they line up on that third down, you're not sure who's coming, who's going where. I can see Georgia getting back to it. I'm not trying to, me, I'm not overly optimistic. I can be very super pessimistic, but I'm just thinking that I'm with you. I don't know that this is the year. I think Georgia will be as talented as anybody they face. But, man, we saw mistakes. And I'm with you, Dash. They got it. Once they get that worked out. Remember that, the 2021 team. I said I predicted Georgia lose to Clemson. I said the team by the end of the year will look nothing like they do at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we see the same. I think people will be freaking out after the Marshall game. God damn it, Mike Bobo, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, they're like, man, nobody wants to play Georgia.
And one thing you kind of notice as we're sitting here talking about, next year's team, we're talking about other players waiting in the wings. When other schools, they can be talking like we are right now and I have any clue or idea who's could possibly step up. Here, we've given examples of other young players who are just kind of, again, waiting on an opportunity to show Kirby and prove, what they can do. So, Georgia has the players. They just got to, again, coach them up and see if they can make more progress maybe than I may think they can right now.
Shahid Huckabee says, I think they have a nice mix of young and older guys on defense.
Yeah, that's right.
They have more young than older, but at least enough to compensate.
Agreed.
And here's the thing. You want that – if you're going to have to rely on young guys, I want to rely on them on defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because offense, you got to be right. Now, normally young guys on defense just get smoked. It's not good. But where's your coaching strength? Kirby Smart is your coaching strength. Mm-hmm. The guys in that room, he's a defensive guy. Mike Bobo can handle his offensive guys. If he's got a young team, he'll be fine. But give me the defensive guru with a young defense, and I'm like where George's chances are there. Guess heard anything about Nazir Johnson?
Nazir, he played the other day, didn't he? I thought I heard his name mentioned a couple of times. And he looked, and I know I didn't mention him a while ago, but he's another one of those young guys, kind of like Oboko. I don't think he's quite, as ready as Oboko is right now, but he's a guy we saw, saw make a couple of plays the other day. He's another big human being, and he'll have an impact as well. So, and again, that's good. You want all the depth you can at the defensive line, and George, as we all know, they love to rotate those guys in and out. And he should be in that mix.
Foster, hey, the Tennessee game would be a lot easier now.
Well, let's see who they go out and get for quarterback, man. Come on, we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Hey,
I say on a serious note, on that, just real quick. The guy who I think is going to win that job, what's his name, Mecklenburg, that played at Calgary.
Out of Savannah, or is he out of?
He's legit. They could do a lot worse than I think they're going to him. And right now, I think if the season would start today, I think he'd be their guy.
All right, let's make fun of Tennessee real quick.
Okay.
We knew it was bound to happen.
There was no real drama with the Nico recruitment because we knew right off the bat that this guy was getting a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of up and down, going back and forth. We knew that one was a slam dunk. He gets there, and they've got some really good quarterback, ahead of him, and then he gets a shot. You see the flashes. I'm not going to bag on him as a bad quarterback. Is he a $4 million quarterback? I don't think anybody is, but this guy is good. So people who are kind of crapping on some of his games last year, I'm like, hey, I wouldn't. Just like I think Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma. I wanted him to come to Georgia. That kid is going to blow up. He's going to be a problem at all.
Talk about another gamer type. That's that kid.
Absolutely.
Right
and
he,
in other words, he was in a bad situation for him. They threw him to the Wolves early. You surround him with some good players, even though he's going to an SEC team. He's playing in the with maybe a tougher spot. I don't know that Oklahoma's schedule is pretty tough, but I know Auburn's got a tough one. I'm just going to tell you that kid, he's a monster. So sometimes you can't take the 1 year and say this is who they are. Nico's a good quarterback, but there was no drama there. Now they've got drama, and I'm not rooting against the kid. I don't know him. Like I said, because I never got to speak to him because I think we interviewed him once, but everybody knew where he was going. Don't know enough about him. But I'm kind of rooting for no one to pick him up at the pay scale that he wants.
I don't think anybody in the SEC. Well, he can't play in the
Well, he
SEC.
can't be in the SEC. I don't want
That's what
anybody in
I'm
the
saying.
nation.
Even just to pick him up, I would. I mean, I would.
Yeah. I mean, if he goes somewhere and gets the same deal, okay, congrats. It didn't work out for you. You wanted more. But I think every coach in America is so happy that Josh Heupel said, dude, you tried to hold out. You tried to call our bluff. We're walking away. And I think every coach in America is like, yes. And the players like, damn it. And again, there's a power dynamic going back and forth. But I'm all for guys getting paid the most. But
same here.
When you don't do enough to double your salary, then I don't think it's.
But when you, to me, though, when you sit out,
kid, we would be talking transfer portal. You'd have to renegotiate everything that you just did 2 months ago.
I know people say I'm wrong and I'm a complete idiot, which maybe true, because in NFL you see guys hold out all the time. I just think it's a different situation in college. Even though these guys are getting paid, you basically hold out, which is what he did. He didn't go to practice that one day, and I think that's letting you. That's putting yourself above the team. I think that's what it's doing in that situation.
And the agents all started this crap in during the playoffs, saying, "Look, all our deals were like 12 games plus a national championship or a SEC a conference championship game."
Mm-hmm.
But now that you're going to play 2-3 games in the playoffs, we need to add on for that. And it's the same thing in the NFL when you're saying, "Hey, we want to go from 16 games to 17, or we want to have these preseason games." The agent's like, "Oh, well, we got to pay up for that," and I get that. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that we see coaches now every time a coach gets a new deal that's, they move someplace else, that moves the market up for all the head coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And every time the assistant coaches, because don't remember who it was, but I remember the first time I heard an offensive coordinator got $1 million. I'm like, $1 million? Now they're getting $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got an offensive line coach who's looking at his offensive coordinator going, the offensive coordinator is getting $2 million. And I'm getting $175,000. We don't go anywhere without my offensive line. And again, so everything goes up. And it's fine. I want people to I wish everybody on this show was making $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to negotiate that, do it on that first portal. Don't turn around and do it on second time, because then the market shifts for everything in part 2. And I'm like, man, it's just – so I'm kind of glad that Heupel did what he did. I respect them for saying nobody's bigger than Tennessee. I would make fun of them, but I think they handled it the right way. I think the kid was given bad advice. And, sometimes you have to be able to walk away from the deal. He did that. He walked away on Friday. And then, I won't say they called his bluff, but they're like, okay, fine. So I will root for Tennessee to be successful in every game but Georgia, because I think you got to move over. I also don't like what Carson Beck did. Carson Beck, hey, I'm going to pro. Okay, go pro, Carson. Here's all the luck. We'll help you move. And then change his mind and goes to Miami. I'm like, oh, dude. Again, but he did it. At least he did it at the in that first window. He didn't stick around and say, "I'm coming back for my senior year," and then transfer now. And you're like, crap. What do you do after you've just completed spring? I mean, if you're bringing him in,
I mean, it's just kind of unfathomable to think.
But you just went through spring practice, and your guys thinking, "I'm 1, I'm 2, I'm 3," and then you bring in him, and you're like, "Coach, you son of a bitch."
Yeah, exactly.
Locker room would be like,
where I think that could be a locker room problem too, especially with a guy. They know how much money this guy's about to get. I mean, $4 million is just absolutely insane. But would you not think that would just mess up the chemistry of a locker room?
No,
the culture of the program.
I would think that. And let's say he goes to UCLA, and he comes in, and they're like, "Hey, man, nice to meet you. good luck. Look forward to working with you. That you still have that resentment knowing that he's supposedly making $4 million. He could tell you, nah, I got it worked out for me. I got even less than I was making in Tennessee. But would you believe him, Harrison?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
So the crazy thing about all this was just the week before Kirby's final spring press before the spring game, he was talking about what's going on in basketball and the portal and those front end deals. Everybody wants to get their money now because they don't know what's going to happen when the house settlement comes out. This just all feels like one of those cases where it's, Nico gets bad advice, needs to get paid now because he doesn't know if he's going to get paid later. And now it's Roddy. The big takeaway after that press conference, and Dash wrote the article on what Kirby was talking about, was there's going to be a market correction at some point. We just don't know when.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said I think all the coaches in America are like, this is the first, I don't want to say domino to fall, but this is the first time very publicly someone said no. Now, someone mentioned Bobby Sagas said Rashada looks ridiculous to me. Jaden Rashada was also a big story because he was promised a ton from Florida, and Florida reneged, and then he winds up going out to Arizona. So it's
now his court case is advancing.
Absolutely. It's just and there's also going to be the court case for all the people who said, look, we didn't get money, tournament money, NCAA tournament, SEC gymnastics championship. There's a lot more court cases coming. The point is, when you see a coach sign a huge deal that changes the market for all the coaches, and you see a player sign a big deal, because I remember how shocked everybody was when they were talking about the Jaden Rashada amount. It's like, what? You're supposed to get this from what? And I spoke to coaches who were saying, yeah, that's what every kid in America thinks that a SEC quarterback is valued at. And so they were going out of their way to say, nobody's getting that kind of money. And no one believed it because we all believe the most salacious thing we hear. So we figured, well, all the coaches, all the players are making that. And so now that money popped out there, $4 million, everyone's going to assume that that's what he's getting. And but at least now a lot of people are like, well, nope, Tennessee won't pay $4 million. And if nobody else does, the market stays at $2.2 million for a QB. Mm-hmm. And just the crazy numbers we saw about Carson Beck, he's making $8 or $9 million. I'm like, bullshit. It's not. I know for a fact he's not making that much. He's making a lot. He's making millions, but anyway, I'll get away from that. Lance, who's the biggest guy you talked to after the weekend and when it comes to recruiting? Because this was a big recruiting weekend for Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say, at least for me, I talked to a 2027 defensive lineman on the north side, Warner Robins. He's a Rivals 250 player named Elijah Patman, and he's one of these kids that Georgia offered after I think a solid sophomore season. And I was kind of talking to him just about what he saw. I was just popped in the question. I was like, were there any freshmen that stood out to you? He said Elijah Griffin, like we talked about earlier. He said the dude is unstoppable to block, and he's just a freak of a human being. He also mentioned Isaiah Gibson, who played from Warner Robins. They grew up playing, against each other, and, he knows that, I don't know if he's ever had a conversation with, Isaiah since he, ended up in Georgia. But I mean, he kind of understands the standard of just coming in, working hard, keeping your head down, and doing it right, and you can eventually see the field at Georgia. Obviously, Jed, just talking to Mark Bowman right now, that's a huge get, for us, and I think Georgia's definitely one of the finalists. So I'm excited to see.
Did you see what Sam Spiegelman wrote about him today?
Yeah, I mean, just you talk about a kid that reclassified was like one of the top. Like 250, top 100 players, 50 players in the country in 2027, and then reclassifies. And I think it's number 29 in the country and the number 2 tight end. And after he reclassifies, I mean, he's talented. Todd Hartley's definitely got a type at at tight end. And I mean, even, I think there was another 27 kid named Brock Williams who was in town, another I think is a West Coast tight end. And, there were definitely, a lot of kids like that, from all classes that, Georgia's bringing in, they're evaluating, and, hopefully, invite them back in the, around this time next month when, all these kids.
Mark Mormon, for folks that are not familiar with him, 6'5", 225 pounds, the number 30 player of the nation. Rivals has him as a 6.0, which is right at the very top. He's as close to being a 5-star as you can get.
Yeah.
I'm going to do I usually don't weigh into the ranking stuff, but I'm going to be like, look, you guys are going to look like idiots if you don't make him a 5-star. Now, he's the number 30 player of the nation. We normally have about 32 5-stars because a 5-star ranking means that's a guy we expect to go number one or go in the first round. So you need to have about 32 guys that you think are going to be first-round picks. Mm-hmm. Sam Spiegelman writes that Georgia's in the pole position for this guy.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the Georgia coaches think that he is on par at this point in his development, even though, again, he reclassified. He's supposed to be 2027. He's now a class of 2026. He's jumping up just like Dominic Kelly. Right?
Yeah, we made an interception on Saturday.
I'm just saying, lots of times when these guys reclassify, you're like, you were too young to do this. Not him. Micah Morris. He didn't reclassify, but that guy showed up at age 17, and we all know Ryan Williams did. Sometimes young guys can ball. Yeah. It's obvious off the bat. And Mark Bowman, if Georgia can get him, that's going to be a big one. So,
yeah, and another note on him, obviously, he's from California. Well, so is Georgia. Do what?
I have making fun of his high school.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, he's obviously from California. I've got a picture of him sitting with Vance Spafford, who's also from California, the Georgia 4-star wide receiver commit. And I think that they're close. And, there have been some –
They play on the same 7-on-7 team.
Yeah. And they're friends from the same area. It's big. And it's certainly big to get these, these California kids, even out for a spring game. They might be on spring break, but – I mean, that's still a 4-hour flight. That's still a 4-hour flight from, wherever they are in California. And then, another hour and a half, 2-hour drive, depending on traffic, in from Atlanta. So, I mean, it's, I'm amazed that, throughout the spring, Kirby Smart has been able to get these elite recruits from all across the country, from all different classes, in just for an unofficial visit. So, it's spring was a busy time for them, but I think that they had, a lot of guys in town. They also had a couple other commits too. I think I saw obviously Keelan Jones was there. He committed, a few hours before G-Day. This 4-star safety, fast rising DB out of Sprayberry and Marietta, another in-state kid. And then I also saw Harrison, the Cartersville wide receiver. That's committed to Georgia. His name's blanking me right now.
I was watching them court Lawson Lucky's little brother.
Yeah. Lawson Lucky. Yeah, who was also there. We talked about Namani Ogboku. Yeah, Carter. Well, there was also, I think is it Akeem Ogboku was the little brother of Namani Ogboku? Yeah. He was also in town too.
Namandi Ogboku's younger brother, Nakeem, came from Garner, North Carolina.
Brady Marchese was also in town. That's the name of the Cartersville wide receiver. So, it's good to get these, 5'6". Zeke Fort was also in town too, a safety out of IMG. So, it's always good when Kirby can get, the commits together, and, they also help build the class, too. They're I saw, Vance Spafford, making his way around the recruiting section, talking to different kids, talking, different sections. And, I assume, he's kind of telling them, how it is and why he committed to Georgia. So, it's pretty impressive, what Kirby is able to do with, even the recruits in the class going out and recruiting others.
Well, he needs to get Jared Curtis back on track.
Yeah. I think Jared Curtis was it prom or something like that?
Yeah, where Dominic Kelly should have been.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, he's making interceptions in his first spring game.
It did blow my mind the sheer number of new faces. I was talking to Catherine, the photographer at UGA Sports, and she's like, lots of times when you go out as a photographer, you'll take a list of the people that you need to get. You write it on an armband or wrap them around your big lens or something like that. So like, I'm just going to shoot them all because, I don't know. That's a new number. That's a new number. That's a new number. And I realized I had to keep cheating and looking at the roster because there's so many new people out there. And Dash, you mentioned this was a young team. Kirby Smart will tell you what's on his mind.
Yeah.
It'll sound like coach speak, but then he'll chastise us or the people in general. Like, I told you we were young.
Yeah.
Right. This is a ridiculously young team. Some people point out there are some guys in who may even be an upperclassman but have not played a whole lot. But this is a young team, and he is looking for that fire, that passion. He's basically trying to get back to what he had. So he's got a loaded roster with limited experience, young players who they are throwing into the fire. Big Jackson going that, getting reps with the one. Juan Gaston getting reps with the ones and twos, throwing them out there. Guy, seeing Talon Taylor going to him, going to Ethan Barber like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was another guy. We were talking about, which transfer stood out to you, and then we kind of rolled over to newcomers. Barber's one, definitely a baller. Bo Walker, you mentioned that. But we are going to be talking, I think, all year long about the new. I mean, when Malachi burst on the scene, game one, 2021. I remember writing in my 3-2-1. Clemson's going to win this game, but Georgia's going to be throwing the ball to number 84, and they're also going to be going to number 19.
Yeah.
Who? No one thought. Ladd McConkey. They're going to throw the ball to him. Yeah. So my point is, when Kirby says this is a young team and we've got to find the guys who have the passion, that leadership, who want to be here, I think that's what they, going from G-Day to the August 1st, first day of all camp, all those practices they do, all the team meetings and team workouts and, the volunteer workouts. It's going to be to find those guys and prep these young guys for it. So we're talking about newcomers and everyone. It's all, the new shiny thing is always what everybody wants to talk about. But I really think that's the future of this team. And we're talking, you're talking recruiting. As much as we want to complain about NIL and, transfer portal, again, everybody's suffering through the same thing. But you have Kirby Smart at the helm. And he's going to, like last year, he wound up with the number 2 class by just a couple points. He's going to recruit a ridiculously good class this year as well, and next year. He's always going to have some of the best players in the nation, and they will rebuild. So, yeah. I think we need to wrap it up there, unless you guys had any other thoughts you want to kind of shoehorn in here at the end.
No, just going to be a lot for us to talk about during the summer. Transfer portal, opens up again, the 10-day period on Wednesday. So everybody be keeping their eye on that.
Right, a lot of legal stuff coming down.
Yeah.
House settlements, that could have a lot to do with it. And, it'll be interesting, what is the future of walk-ons?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one. Especially for Georgia.
So anyway, a lot to keep up with UGAsports.com. We appreciate all of you folks tuning in for this edition of Rumors versus Facts. It's kind of heavy G-Day, but next, as we get into the official visit season, we'll be talking a lot more recruiting and that type of stuff because that's going to be what's hot. And be sure to tune in tomorrow at noon where we'll get Coach Donovan's thoughts on all this. Bringing an actual expert, somebody knows what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, we'll see you folks next week. Y'all take care.
Yep.